The truth is out. Season 4 seemed to be a time for trying to drive dramatically the show into new territory.
I need to know the reasons why this should be.
So that the project may proceed unabated by removing an unnecessary obstacle.
What obstacle?
Agent Mulder, actually.
Well, season 4 started well for me because it was the first time CSM actually did something good in saving Mrs. Mulder's life. I told the bounty hunter that if we kill his mother, Mulder's going to be much more dangerous to us because he has nothing to live for. Some kind of nonsense like that. I mean, I don't know. Bounty hunters may be good at killing aliens, but they're you can pull the wool over their eyes.
Heron Folk was probably the most difficult and in many ways one of the most painful episodes that I ever did. We had thousands and thousands of bees. They were drones that supposedly wouldn't sting you, but golly, guess what happened? And, a bunch of people got stung, and I remember the little girl. We had a sequence where I had a 3-shot, the 3 of them standing there, and it was like, a fairly long scene. I mean, not, probably over a minute or something. And at the very beginning of it, the little girl got stung, and she actually maintained through the whole scene. I didn't even know it until after the fact. And then finally I got it, I went, cut. She went, ah! She just totally freaked out, And David, go, man, you're a Trojan. I actually went and got her, I remember I went and I made up a Purple Heart, a plaque with a Purple Heart, and I had Jillian present her with it.
Bees are very difficult to work with because, of course, it's hard to get trained bees. We had never done it. We were, as with most things on the X-Files, we wrote it first and then tried to figure out how to do it later on.
Interesting situation when they first shot them. I think they had to slow them down so they wouldn't fly off, so they cooled them off a little bit. Of course, they got so lethargic that they threw them in, they all kind of dropped.
It was really a trick to get these bees, which are, some of them are live, actual bees, and some of them are CG bees, to perform, and you had to do it in a variety of cuts, which means that every one of those cuts, every one of those angles is a new computer-generated element. And that, in the end, proved to be one of the hardest things to do, was to make those bees seem as if they were all doing the same dance through a series of very complicated edits.
We did this throughout the series where characters who were incredibly important and integral to the stories suddenly, totally unexpectedly, are killed, And I am proud to say that I killed quite a few of them. I killed Deep Throat, and I killed Melissa, and I killed Mulder's father, and I like to say that whenever an actor saw on the call sheet that Bob Goodwin was directing, I think they sort of got a little nervous about the whole thing. That was also the episode where we killed Steve Williams, where we killed X. Someone else I killed. I killed X too, right? And we had to shoot that about 2 or 3 times before we got that right too,
Hey, Sheriff, who lives in that house there?
When I got home and I read Home, I thought, this is my moment to do a classic piece of film. I was raised on Frankenstein movies with Boris Karloff, and Lon Chaney Jr. was a huge hero of mine, the Wolfman. When I read this, I thought, this is as classic a horror script as I'm ever going to see as a director.
I remember when the script for Home came in, and it was sent up to Vancouver. The producer up there, J.P. Finn, came up to me and he said he thought we had gone too far this time. He thought that it was pushing the limits of good taste to have suggested that there was incest going on in this episode. I assured him that it would be done tastefully, as I believe it was done.
I am a firm believer that more than outraged it, beating the sheriff and his wife to death, and the incestuous family relationship of the Peacock family. I think people were frightened by that show because it played to their first fear in life, that there's something under the bed. And I think that's what bugged America, and I don't think they even realized it. Frightening images. That's what this show is about.
We had an initial pass on the mix, and the baby was crying, sounding very sickly. The hairs in the back of your neck stood up. And the final shot of that teaser, this big glob of dirt comes right in the camera, as if it's the baby's POV, and the little screaming shuts up.
When the baby was born alive, and we buried it alive, and the baby's crying, and we covered it with dirt, and it was really a horrifying opening act. So horrifying that Standards of Practice has said, oh, no, the baby can't make a sound. It's dead from the get-go.
I didn't really understand it. The network has to protect themselves, and there were people who were absolutely outraged by the show. But there's some sort of a badge, some sort of rewarding experience to think that I directed a show that they've banned from television. It's like living in a third world country, you know. We're banned in Budapest. Home was banned in the U.S.
Stop! We're on fire!
Mulder!
Home is our most, I think, controversial episode, certainly in the broadcast standards area. But I think that it appears regularly on lists of people's favorite episodes because it is not just scary, which it is, but it's very funny, and it's Mulder and Scully, crack-wise, they're very funny together.
Scully, would you think less of me as a man if I told you I was kind of excited right now?
There's some secret farmer trick to getting these things moving?
Nah, review. Nah, review.
Yeah, that'll work.
I was writing the episode Small Potatoes. I was halfway through the script, and I realized that there was only one person only to play the part of Eddie Van Blunt.
And I go, well, what do I play? Like a kind of like a good-looking, handsome guy searching for true love? He goes, no, you play a fat, ugly loser who's impregnating women, basically by raping them, because you were born with a tail. Oh, okay, Vince. Thanks. Send me the script.
I thought about it, and I was like, oh, man. I called him back, and I said, Darren, I don't think of you that way. I don't think you're a loser. And he said, yeah, whatever.
So you're saying there was romance involved?
Why is that so hard to believe? Just because I was born with a tail, no woman would want me? Maybe I got personality.
And as anyone who's seen the show knows, he's a really, aside from being a great writer, he's a great actor. He's just very natural.
I think this is one of those episodes that shows the wonderful elasticity, I call it, the stretchability of the show, that it can go in some kind of wild direction. A show about a baby with a tail, and figure out how to turn it into a touching episode about Mulder and Scully and their regard for one another.
I can't believe I'm telling you this.
I don't believe you haven't told me before.
No, I'm seeing a whole new side of you, Mulder.
Is that a good thing?
I like it.
Leonard Betts was one of the most out there monsters we came up with, but he was also one of my favorite because as weird as he was, he ate cancerous tumors to survive. If you cut off his head, it could grow back. And if he was injured, he would take a bath in hydrogen peroxide. He was really a great guy.
When I shot Leonard Betts, I learned something about directing the X-Files. And I've used it ever since that episode of Leonard Betts.
It's okay.
That even your villains have got to have a heart.
Leonard.
I'm sorry.
What I like about his character is that he is not malicious. He just can't help himself, and it makes a dilemma for him. He feels sorry for what he does, and that was something different for us. The severed head gag in Leonard Betts, when Scully is doing an autopsy and the eyes open.
Oh, God.
And the mouth moves, as I recall, was an amazing piece of makeup where they built an appliance for the actor and that fit below his neck, and it was basically a false neck, as I understand it. And so he was lying there, and he just did his part, and the way that in his body somehow angled under the table.
And he laid underneath there for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours while they put the piece on him. But when they were done, it looked like just a head laying on a table. And it was very strange talking to this head laying on a table, giving him direction, because it's like you actually believed that now this guy is just reduced to his head. It was wonderful.
We knew we needed a good boo for the Act 3 out on Leonard Betts, and as I recall, that came out of kind of a one-upsmanship between Frank Spotnitz, Vince Gilligan, and myself, where we're tossing around, what can you do in that little room that we haven't done before on the show, that you've never seen, and that fits his character, and that's exciting and scary. We knew we wanted to do some kind of molting, birthing thing, because we figured, okay, this guy's an evolutionary leap. He reproduces it differently than anybody else, and we thought of splitting bodies, and maybe he cuts in half. And when someone, I honestly can't recall who, when someone said out of his mouth, we all knew that was exactly right.
We got the added bonus of that episode was that it just so happened that Leonard's ability to detect cancer in people led ultimately to the surprise and shock at the end of that episode of discovering that he wanted to attack Scully because, as he says,
I'm sorry. But you've got something I need.
We were afraid people wouldn't pick up on it, to be honest. We thought some of the audience members would get it, some people will go right over their heads. And honestly, on the internet the next morning, that evening actually, when the posting started piling up and everybody was picking up on it and everyone was frantic, what's going to happen? Scully's got cancer. So it worked very nice. It was a very nice way to do it without shining a light on it.
It made perfect sense that, Scully was abducted by aliens, we think, and these other women were getting cancer who were also abducted, so why shouldn't she get cancer as well?
The type and placement of the tumor make it difficult to the extreme.
I refuse to believe that.
For all the times that I have said that to you, I am as certain about this as you have ever been.
We were committed at that point. Once you say Scully has cancer, well, that other shoe is dropped and you can't just leave it. We knew we had to press on from there and do memento mori.
Is your name Kurt Crawford?
Yes.
Scully.
What? I'm fine, Mulder. Quit staring at me, I'm fine.
We had spoken to Jillian very early on and said we wanted to give her character cancer, and she was, of course, I think, delighted, if you can be delighted about being given cancer, because it was something new for her to play. It was an escalation of the character, and by this point everyone had settled very comfortably or uncomfortably into their roles, being that they were asked to do a lot of the same thing, to play a lot of the same beats, because the show is primarily investigative and it's procedural. So all of a sudden when the story turns very personal like this, I think that an actor sees it as a tremendous opportunity.
When you look at that episode, there's the brothers' reaction, which we had to lose for time, unfortunately, but I'm hoping that people can see that scene because the actor Pat Skipper was terrific.
A lot of ghosts now. Dad. Listen. Mom's getting worried there's going to be no one to carry on the Scully name.
There's the mother's reaction, Mulder's reaction. Everyone has a different take on it, and everyone does something different in response to it. Skinner, it gave us a chance to all have a different voice on the whole issue of cancer.
We were very concerned about how Mulder might react to it. and we wanted him to act heroically, but David Duchovny was insistent, and I think he was right, on making Mulder not too heroic, making him go through the sort of variety of emotions that people can and do go through.
I need you to set up a meeting for me.
With whom?
Cigarette man.
At one point, Skinner was under the cigarette smoking man's thumb, and then he got out from under it, and now he's putting himself back in that situation by trying to save Scully's life and get the cigarette smoking man to give her the cure for her cancer.
There's always another way.
So it's once again he's putting himself in this situation that he doesn't want to be in, but because of his allegiance to Mulder and Scully, he's he does.
I think what Memento Mori did was it just took all of the elements that had been gradually kind of developed over the years before and put them together in one incredibly great package.
That one was actually funny because it was, they had built a sewer pipe, of course, so we didn't actually have to go into a sewer pipe. It was just a really big cardboard tube with some lights running down it. Sorry to blow the illusion. But the space that they made was so small that all they did was just shove a camera on some sandbags just like down the tube and then handed me the little clapper board. I'd just say, okay, call it yourself. So I had the little laptop, all crouched in there, and then I had to hold up the clapperboard going, okay, this is scene 18, take 2, click, and then put it down and then pick up my laptop. Mulder, are you okay? It was like, okay, cut.
Tempus fugit means time flies in Latin, which is a play on words, because during the course of that episode, there are airplane flights, 2 of them, where time disappears, which is a phenomenon associated with aliens, UFOs. And that's one of the indications to you that you have had a close encounter.
Is there something else you're looking for?
About 9 minutes.
The crash site was very impressive in Tempus Fugit because we did a shot from the air. So as you went over it, it looked like it went on forever, which it did. But it wasn't really so much construction as debris. I mean, it was over, I think, half an acre or more, and it was, charred ruins. We actually found a crashed airplane somewhere, I think in South Carolina, and shipped it all away across country up to where we were shooting the scene. We had a big tail section and, stuff that was a lot of it was the actual wreckage from a plane crash.
In the recreation of this crash, we wanted to make it as authentic as possible. And we had an NTSB official who came down as our tech advisor and told us that we recreated everything consistent with the crash site, absolutely believably, except for the smell, he said, which is something that you just could never recreate. I remember Gary Allen was saying that he was the art director on the episode. He said that was the first time that he actually felt that his crew had been frightened by their work, which is always a good thing, since here we are trying to create scary stories. It helps if it scares us too.
The crash of Flight 549 will go unsolved unless we find a way to prove it. And when Max is returned, he's going to tell us exactly the same story unless someone gets to him first.
We had to stage in part 2 what actually happened on that plane in the moments before the crash.
The gag in that script, the abduction out of an airplane in midair, was our special effects man's ideas, David Gaudier. He wanted to build an airplane, interior mock-up, and he built it, I think, 80 feet long, and he had it 6 feet off the ground on these giant hydraulic ramps. It was 400 gallons of hydraulic fluid, and it pitched the airplane 22 degrees in each direction, and it also thrusted up and down, as I recall. And it was all computerized. Any program you wanted, there was a whole panel. And this guy built this over like 6-7 months it took him.
I remember watching that in dailies and just laughing, which is often what happens when you work on a show like The X-Files, because not that it's funny, you're so delighted that it's so horrific that you are tickled by how successful you are because you know it worked, and that doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you can't help but laugh in satisfaction.
That was all real. That was not CGI. When those people flew out of that airplane into space, they were on like 40 or 50-foot ratchet cords, and we just whipped them out of that airplane into the darkness of the stage that we had wrapped in black, and we put a little smoke in for atmosphere. But we were in that set for 3 days, flying up and down with these extras. And I thought, well, if you're going down in an airplane, you've got time to think about it. And that you're going to run through every emotion. I mean, I thought some people would pray, some people would scream, some people would sit numb, some people would hold their wives. It's got to be a mixed bag. And although I don't ever want to experience it, I just put myself in a plane going down, and I thought, what must that be like? And that's what I came up with.
Gethsemane was it was one of these big idea episodes about the existence of God or not.
If someone could prove to you the existence of God, would it change you?
Only if it had been disproven.
What has happened is that Mulder has gone off in search of proof of the existence of an extraterrestrial. Mulder goes and sees this bit of evidence, or ultimately sees this bit of evidence, in an ice cave high in the mountains. And we needed to recreate that ice cave because it was a very important part of the storytelling. And we ended up recreating it, or creating it, in a freezer, what was a frozen foods or a meat locker or something, a giant freezer that we could bring the temperature down to the point where we could not only keep the ice from melting and the snow from melting that we brought in, but we could create breath from the actors. This becomes a point of where Scully parts ways with Mulder. She does not want to be a part of this, of his crusade here, of his search for his Holy Grail.
That led for a great cliffhanger when you felt that Mulder was dead in the end, and then of course when he came back the next season we found out the truth of what had happened.
Hit him?
Yeah.
And it ends up becoming very personal because she loses Mulder as a result of this, but finds out in fact that she hasn't lost him at all. But that leads to this being the season finale, that leads to the season 5 opener.
And we're still heading in that direction toward the end of the series, toward the resolution of Mulder's quest for his sister, etc. It is going in the direction he originally planned, yet we've taken some very, very wide turns. Scully's cancer was a turn. Mulder's apparent death at the end of season 4 was another turn. There have been comedic turns. There's a lot we've done on the road. The mythology has come and gone, in a way.
If you were to sit and watch all the mythology episodes back to back, you'd see how many ideas and images and thoughts that were mentioned one year come back 2 or 3 years later. It's very common. It's not unusual. And I think that's part of what has encouraged the sort of diehard following we have. Because if you are a fanatic, if you really follow the details, you will be rewarded because there are so many things that carry forward from the pilot to the present day.
Season 4 was a very difficult season in so many ways. We were just, I could not have worked harder. Most of us could not have worked harder. It was kind of a miracle that we actually got everything done we wanted to get done.
That's the exciting thing about the X-Files for a director, for myself, for Rob Bowman. That's why we've been so excited to be here. That's why we've stayed here. You just don't get these kind of opportunities in television to do things that creative, you know? Don't get opportunities in TV to do feature work. And Chris Carter gives you those opportunities in the scripts he hands you. It's just another day on the X-Files.